Hello, everyone. This is the Pitcher Nail Down. I am Russell Clay. You can find me at Russell J. Clay on Twitter. Uh, I'm excited. We have a six-game main slate here tonight, starting at 7:15 on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Not quite the punch we had in the main slate yesterday in terms of pitching. We do have one stud pitcher and Jose Fernandez, and obviously in cash that's going to be a main option here on six games. But we'll sort of get into that as we go along here. But all right, let's start off 7:15. Scott Kazmir versus Jeff Samardzija. Dodgers versus Giants. Obviously, we're expecting a slightly different result than last night. If you played the slate last night, you obviously know Kershaw led up that homer to Matt Duffy, which was bizarre. But other than that, was completely dominant. I mean, at one point, I think he struck out 5 or 6 in a row, and then had 10 straight retired after the homer. So. We know what you're getting there. That's why you pay up for him in cash. But obviously you don't have that on the hill today. You got Scott Kazmir, so we'll take that. Lefty, obviously, you're worried about the Giants not striking out much. They get the bat on the ball unless it's Clayton Kershaw. And you really just don't love this matchup for Kazmir. Giants aren't normally a team to target. They are favored. They are projected for more runs. Kazmir's kind of been up and down this year. Maybe on a 6-gamer, I think you have an excuse to sort of throw him in there in a deeper tournament lineup. Maybe your 8th or 10th lineup construction or something like that. But he's not going to be in cash. He's not going to be what you're looking at for sort of initial building. So I don't think you're really looking at him. On the other side, Samardzija's intriguing just because this Dodgers lineup struggles pretty much all the time. Pretty good ballpark. And Samardzija, I mean, righty versus the Dodgers. It's a pretty good matchup. Obviously, you don't like his last 2 starts, 10 earned runs in the last 2. But before that, he was really stabilized. He had 7 or more strikeouts in 5 of the last 6 games, so including 9 strikeouts twice to the Rockies and Reds. So I think he's a pretty good bet. I do like him more than Kazmir. We'll see how that plays out, but neither are cash game options, especially on FanDuel. I think there's really only one option tonight. For FanDuel purposes, I don't really even see the reason to fade. He's going to be like 90% in cash. So Jose Fernandez, just slot him in on FanDuel in cash games. But back to Samardzija for a second. It just seems like everything is pointing in a decent direction, but not a great direction for him. Definitely a good SP2 on DraftKings, and probably not your first guy you're looking at, but definitely in play. Moving on here, Cardinals Pirates. Francisco Liriano, someone I'm targeting. Aledmys Diaz, pretty much automatic. I think we're going with him tonight. Matt Holliday, Piscotty, that 1 through 4, and then a Matt Adams is kind of the normal what you're looking at with the Cardinals nowadays. So I think that's kind of what I'm looking at there. Liriano, that walk rate is just too high. Lefty versus righty on a lot of these matchups. It's not a good matchup for him. He's been really below average this year and struggled with control of pretty much all of his pitches. So you're not really looking at much upside here. Obviously, he did have the big game against the Cardinals earlier a month ago, but since then it's been all downhill. Just quite a few blow-up games, and not even necessarily against great offenses. So avoiding Liriano for now, even on a smaller slate. Carlos Martinez, he's another guy where he's sort of in that Kazmir Samardzija range, but he's facing a pretty solid offense tonight. You're looking at Gregory Polanco and John Jaso as guys that can potentially do well off him. I think you're always worried about McCutcheon and Marte. Jung Ho Kang's coming around with the power of late, so this is no slouch of an offense. I'm not sleeping on the Pirates, that's for sure. And even the end of that lineup with Harrison and Mercer, they're pretty strong, one through seven at the very least. So I think we're looking at that kind of a tough matchup for Martinez. Obviously, he has strong upside, 10K upside, but tonight I'm not sure about how much upside he has. So the Pirates kind of cap that ceiling. I'm not totally in um on Martinez tonight. I think I'd rather go with a Samardzija. So that's what we're looking at there. Next one up is a one where on a 15 gamer, I would just be avoiding completely. This one stinks to me. Verlander, it's Detroit versus the Yankees. Verlander has been strong. I will not deny that. I don't like this matchup for him tonight, though. This Yankees offense is also coming around quite a bit. The strikeouts have been there for Verlander, and I think that's conceivable against this Yankees lineup, but it is a lot of lefty-righty matchups. You got McCann, Ellsbury, Gardner in there, and then obviously Beltran's a switch hitter, so that's a tough matchup for him. I think he's fairly priced. I think he's a fair tournament SP2. I think you can definitely make that work with Fernandez tonight. He's right on the fringe of cash on a 6-gamer. I'm okay with it, but again, the Yankees are favored here, projected for 4.5 runs. Something stinks here, you know. Obviously Verlander's been good, but I think you're not feeling great about this right now. It's just the way the slate works out. You might be getting more exposure to him than you would normally be comfortable with, but sometimes that's okay. There were a few guys like that last night, like Stephen Wright, where you didn't even necessarily have to get highly owned, and not necessarily in a perfect spot, but sometimes it works out. So for Verlander, yeah, I'm in on him, obviously. He's just been too good of late, but again, it's not a perfect matchup. So tournaments for sure, SP2, sure. Tournaments on FanDuel, I'm in as well. But be cautious. Don't go 100% exposure. Understand the risk there. On the other side, Tanaka, that's another tough matchup. I do like it. I like the matchup more, actually. Tigers only projected for 3.5 runs. Obviously, just mentioned Yankees are favorites, but it's a lot of righty on righty here, which isn't always. It's not anything like lefty on lefty, but it isn't a significant factor. So you look at this lineup, Cameron Maybin, obviously slowing down a tad from where he was early on in sort of his first 40 to 50 at bats, but he's still a strong hitter. Same with Kinsler, same with Cabrera, Victor Martinez strong, JD Martinez strong, Castellano strong, Justin Upton struggling, but I mean, this Tigers lineup in theory is really stacked. Am I worried about Tanaka? Not necessarily. I think he's got a pretty high floor, but he's not really a tournament play, and he's not really a cash play. So he's kind of in that middle ground where I don't think he gets shelled, but I don't think he has that upside either. So I think you're looking in other directions. I like quite a few. I think I like Kazmir and Samardzija over him in that range. But he is close. He's in that same tier. I just put him third in that tier behind Samardzija. So, just looking at that, there's a lot of power in those Tigers bats. So I'd imagine they get to him at some point. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. Probably an avoid for the most part, especially on FanDuel. I just don't see the upside. Trevor Bauer. All right. Pretty unique case here. He'd been kind of getting beat up every game. Hasn't really shown much. And then out of nowhere against the Mariners last start, 10 strikeouts, 1 earned, only 5 hits in almost 8 innings. So there you go. There's some upside. I'd imagine that comes back down to earth. Angels aren't a slouch at this point in the season. Obviously, you like Trout, mashes righties. Cole Calhoun obviously mashes righties, so I think you're looking at those two. I'd be looking at a mini stack there. I don't think you need to include Pujols, but in terms of Bauer, he does have that upside, but it is more of a contrarian 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 lineup type deal than an actual viable strategy at this stage. I think there's better matchups in that range. And then I think even in that same range, you look at Matt Schumacher. I think he's a much better contrarian tournament play, and he's cheaper. Obviously, this could come back down to earth at any stage, but he has been pretty decent of late, at least in his last 4 or 5 starts. Allowed 2 home runs last game, but overall has been really strong. So getting that strikeout rate up, which just was not there at all previously this season, and then he's kept it pretty consistent. So I'm not totally afraid of this Indians team and good matchups. They're pretty similar to the Reds in that they do well in good matchups, but then they kind of get shut down. It'll be interesting how far back down to earth Schumacher comes, but I do think there's significant upside here. Obviously, he's shown the strikeout upside of late. And this Indians team kind of struggles against righties. So I'd be looking at that. Definitely as a contrarian tournament play, definitely as an SP2 on DraftKings. I'm not quite there in cash, but on a 6-gamer, you don't necessarily have to be quite there to throw it in there. So that'd be someone I'm looking at for sure. Moving down here, Kobe Lewis versus James Paxton, Rangers versus Mariners. Kobe Lewis, we're targeting you tonight, fella. Oh boy, that could be a rough one. Cano, Seager, Lind, Seth Smith, Aoki, all those lefties coming at Kobe Lewis. This could be rough. Obviously, Mariners 155 favorites, projected for 4.5 runs. So this could be a one to stack the Mariners big time. I think they're reasonable enough at the top that you can sort of get that Cano and Seager in there and not worry too much. Just in terms of Lewis, he just doesn't have the upside at this stage in the season or really in his career, especially against the strong Mariners offense. So I think you're just completely avoiding there. James Paxton, mixed results in his first 2 starts, sort of back, but in his last 3 or so, strong. I mean, 10 strikeouts last game, only 1 earned. 5 hits, 1 home run. So I think you're looking at him as sort of a contrarian tournament play for sure. My dog is just being a wild person right now. He is just all over the joint trying to distract me from James Paxton. Maybe that's a sign, guys. Maybe that's a sign we shouldn't be playing James Paxton tonight, but I probably am. As I mentioned, 6-gamer, so you kind of got a beggars can't be choosers situation. But I do like Schumacher and Paxton in sort of that mid 7K range on DraftKings, and then you kind of go down on FanDuel and 7,300 for Paxton, 79 for Schumacher. So yeah, they're both in that same range on both sites. I do like that. I like that more than some of the higher priced guys. I just think he has that upside. Obviously, he has the downside. Paxton has a much higher blow up rate against this Rangers offense. Obviously, we love Mazar, Odor, Profar, Beltre, and even a little Rua in there. So I think that is a contrarian stack to sort of throw out there. But other than that, I don't think you're really looking too strong at him other than tournaments. Last one of the night, Jose Fernandez versus Zach Goodley. Marlins 180 favorites. I mean, Jose Fernandez, he has just been crushing of late. 10 or more strikeouts in 4 of his last 6, 0 earned runs in 3 of his last 6 outings. I mean, just dominant. Hasn't allowed over 6 hits in a lot of starts, like 9 starts. So he's just dominant. He is the game arm of the night. I don't see how you get away from him. I honestly don't even see how you get away from him in tournaments. It's just straightforward here. Obviously, if you're hedging and you want to leverage play, you can go Goldschmidt. But I wouldn't risk it with anybody other than Goldschmidt right now. I mean, I love Segura, but this is too tough of a matchup for him. So I'm avoiding there in terms of any Diamondbacks. It's just sometimes you can be contrarian, but sometimes you're just pushing it. Other than Goldschmidt, obviously he's strong against everyone. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. And in terms of Goodley, I can't do it. He has had some decent upside in some of his starts, but he just doesn't go deep enough into games, and the chances of a win are just so slim here. I'm just avoiding altogether. So that's what you're looking at there. So pretty simply, quick review. Fernandez as your cash arm, both sites. Paxton Schumacher, Samardzija Kazmir kind of as tournament guys. Carlos Martinez as a super contrarian tournament guy. Verlander, potential cash guy. If you, for some reason, don't go Jose on FanDuel. And that is pretty much it on this 6-gamer. So be careful out there. Have fun with those stacks. Be contrarian. Be different. And thanks for tuning in. Check out Daily Fantasy Cafe for all our awesome tools and content.